Hey, it's Ben Solomon, and welcome to this episode of the Techno Leadership Show. In this episode, we are going to be talking about how to ease into your new junior technology role. So, if you're someone who's just gotten into the field and have gotten your first job or your second job, as a junior professional, there's differences in how you integrate into a team. There is a lot more leeway and leniency around what you already need to know and what the expectations of the roles are and all of those aspects of things. So when you get into a team, usually your manager or a senior engineer will work with you to kind of onboard you in first helping to understand how the business works, how the technology teams support the business operations and aspects, and what each layer of staffing does, other departments as well as the technology department, and then finally what the actual expectations of you are. In most places, you're not expected to know it all when you start. If you have some understanding, that's a good start, especially if it's your first role. Having a great attitude is probably more important than the actual skills and knowledge. Because if you have great attitude and if you have great interest and passion around technology and what it can do for those who we serve, i.e. our clients, that cannot be taught. It's something that, as someone who has interviewed people for multiple technical roles, I look for personally. And I've spoken to other directors of technology and managers of technology, and similarly, we all, at least the ones that I've spoken to, we all look for the attitude and passion, because those can't be replaced and can't be taught. They're in there, and having the right attitude means we know we can teach you the skills, teach you the processes, and you'll pick them up and you will go on to do great things. So as someone who's trying to ease into the role, you want to try and work with your manager or buddy of some sort that you've been assigned to gain knowledge, to understand how everything works in the organization. Because no matter how much you know about the technology, no matter how much you know about various operating systems, various languages for programming and all that sort of thing, every organization has certain processes and ways they go about doing things. And that's going to be new to you, no matter how high you go in your career, whether you go into like a senior role or even management role or even executive leadership role. Every organization works differently, and the early part of you being in a new organization is understanding how the organization works more than how the technologies work. Once you understand how the organization works, who are in key positions, who need to be given more support, all of those aspects are known, then you can, and how each person expects to be treated. Because certain people expect to be treated a certain way, and we need to know and understand that. And especially if they're in executive leadership and C-level management and they expect you to be there at a drop of a hat, you need to know and understand those expectations. And if the previous people have been keeping up with that expectation and you don't, there's that expectation that's been broken. So that it depends on your manager how that expectation has been managed in the past. So work with them to understand the, in some sense, political landscape of the business. As much as I hate politics and I hate the political systems and bureaucracy that happens and the cliques that happen within an organization, it is part of reality, and it's something that I had to acknowledge and work with rather than trying to butt heads with that. So understanding what the structures are in the business, structures that are tangible and known, as well as the intangible hidden structures. There are certain people who are more influential and other people who may have positions, but they're probably not as influential. So these are things you've got to, keep an open mind for and keep an eye open for. And also, most of the times, your managers, if they're intuitive enough, will know these things and will pass on that information, saying, watch out for that person. If that person asks, make sure they get extra treatment because they support us to get, other things done. There's always those sort of things. And at the end of the day, you want to be fair with everyone, but also understand the dynamics, how the dynamics work between your department and various people of influence in the organization. Then, after this strata of things is done, then come your technology stack, whatever that might be. If you're in development, well, that's more what programs and what languages you use, what methodologies you use. All of that will come in the next stage. And finally, at the lower stages, when you go, how are you to produce the output that you're expected to produce? And if it's a technology services team, again, there's probably certain methodologies and certain frameworks that are being used, like ETL, for example. And in every organization, even though the ETL framework as such might be used, the implementation is usually tweaked to match the needs of the organization. For example, in one of the previous organizations that I worked at, we didn't formally implement ETL. We didn't formally implement DevOps style management. But in that organization, we went from having no help desk to a basic ETL help desk. And we also were able to provide documentation, keep all of those things for staff to be able to do self-help work, as well as documenting all of our systems and everything being maintained. But we also had aspects of Agile in our operations because we did stand-ups in the morning and the afternoon. We then had a fortnightly tech-only meeting, so the whole tech team sat down and we went into details of things. Stand-ups were usually about 5 minutes-ish in the morning, 5 minutes-ish in the afternoon, just to touch base on critical stuff, incidents and things like that. And then it was, the fortnightly meetings, and there was the other fortnight we had business leaders and tech combined together so that we could get more business front-end issues that is going on, frustrations that are going on, so that we can find ways to bridge the gap and ensure that the services that we provide are having the impact that they are designed to have. So depending on your organization, that will be different. So work with your buddy onboarding person to get this information, to understand the subtleties of how things work in your organization. Also, during your first few months to a year, in a junior role especially, be sure to ask a lot of questions. Like, you might already know how to do something, but the expectation in the organization might be slightly different. For example, if you're going to be creating a user in Active Directory, they might have other processes in place that it needs to go before a user is created. Whereas you might go, oh, it's a simple thing, I can just create the user, and you might do it. If you don't ask what needs to happen around that, and there's no documentation around that, you could create the user and it could be sitting orphaned somewhere else. For example, in the organizations that I've worked in the last 5 to 7 years at least, we've had lots of automation scripting in place, which meant if a new user is created, they're put into certain groups, certain scripts work on them to create all the other accounts that they need and things like that. So if it breaks automation there, it can cause, issues. So which is why understanding that, and look, I'd rather have someone ask me a question a few times and make sure that they understand what they're doing and what they need to be doing. And that also gives me a highlight if I'm asked the same question more than twice, that I probably don't have my documentation done properly, which means process documentation comes to me, get the documentation done, and it's there for you to review. And then also means it helps me build more of an onboarding documentation as well, which again is something that sometimes we don't get to because of how busy we can be. So having that open dialogue with your senior staff and your managers is a very important part of things. Building relationship with other staff from other departments is a very important aspect of work, especially if you're in technology services, because you're interacting with them, and having a good relationship means when they're frustrated and when they are angry that technology is not working for them, there is a better relationship to buffer how they react. And when they know you on a more personal level, it's less likely that they will have outbursts with you, and which means you have a better opportunity to be able to work with them and resolve the issue for them, and being able to give them a more higher satisfaction out of the service that you're providing. So a lot of things to think about. At the end of the day, especially at junior levels, if you're in technology services, engineering services, you're facing customer issues and customer frustrations. So people skills are fairly important. As you go up the ladder, if you go down just the system side of things, you could potentially get away with less than adequate people skills. But in most cases these days, especially, we're having to do a lot more customer relationship work. So improving your skills with people is always going to be useful. And I've done multiple episodes around that, where you can get some tips on what resources you can follow and what things will help you understand people better and work with people better. So as a junior technology professional, you have more space, you get more benefit of doubt, so to speak. As you go into senior roles, you are expected to more hit the ground running. So utilize that space that you have to learn more, to understand more, and to get a really good grounding on the company culture, the team culture, and the expectations around everything. So hopefully that's helped you out. I wish you all the best in your journey as a tech professional, manager, and leader. And if you like this episode, please hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. And I look forward to talking to you in a future episode. Have a fantastic day. See you soon. Bye.